As you know, last day we talked about genetic code, and lectures before that was about transcription, which is the first part of the protein synthesis. But still the synthesis of protein is left because uh, translation, without translation, the protein synthesis process cannot be completed. Because the name of process is protein synthesis, and until and unless cell is producing protein, we cannot consider that process is done. So we will talk about translation. What is this translation? Translation can be referred as the biosynthesis of a protein, or it may be a polypeptide chain, because you know that all protein do not contain single polypeptide chain. And this translation, why it is called translation? Because the language that is written in the terms of nucleotides that is carried by messenger RNA is changed into the language of amino acid sequence. That's why this process is called translation. So obviously in case of prokaryotes, it is occurring in cytoplasm. In eukaryotes also it is occurring in cytoplasm. But one thing we need to remember, transcription in prokaryotes, it is occurring in cytoplasm. In eukaryotes, it's occurring in nucleus. So in prokaryotes, it may be possible that from one side messenger RNA is produced, and the same messenger RNA which is halfway done is going for the translation. It is very easily possible in case of prokaryotes, but in eukaryotes it's not possible, because messenger RNA produced inside the nucleus needs to travel a lot and come out of the nucleus. Okay. Now, who are the players of this game? Okay. The major players of this game, first is messenger RNA, which carries message of DNA to the ribosome. Second is transfer RNA, which is the loading truck of amino acid. They will load themselves with amino acid and come back and give it to the ribosome. Third is ribosome. Ribosome is the one which is reading the code of messenger RNA and decoding it to give the code of amino acid. So let us know more about them. This part is already known to you, but I thought I should tell once so that no doubts should not be there. In case of ribosome, two subunits are there. You know about two subunits of ribosomes? Have you heard about it?
Yes, ma'am.
So it seems only Yesha heard about it. Maybe what about others?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I am expecting answers. Yes, Dish, I heard you. I am just trying to get it from other students. You and Yesha, sometimes Jia respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So Nakshatra, what do you know about these two subunits?
30S and 50S.
Okay. 30S and 50S in case of eukaryotes or prokaryotes, beta? Who can tell? Give me the exact S, that is sedimentation coefficient of prokaryotic ribosome and eukaryotic ribosome.
70S and 80S.
So what are the subunits, Vish?
70S and 80S.
I know that, beta. 70S is for prokaryotes, but 70S is made up of what subunits? Further demarcation I am asking. It is made up of 30S and 50S. Okay. And eukaryotic ribosome is made up of 40S and 60S. Okay. So this is how the ribosome, they talked about eukaryotic ribosome, that is 40S and 60S. Each subunit of ribosome is having many RNA as well as proteins. So this is the basic composition of eukaryotic ribosome. Now we will talk about transfer RNA or tRNA. Once again, I am repeating about this. I know we discussed this previous also, because I want you to connect with the topic. It is almost identical in prokaryotes and eukaryotes. It has a clover leaf structure. Why clover leaf? Because of complementary base pairing in between, the single stranded RNA folds at some places to give a clover leaf like structure. And this is the structure of the tRNA, and this is the amino acid is getting attached here. And this is known as the anticodon loop. So, in this lecture, we are going to learn first about prokaryotes, that how protein synthesis takes place in prokaryotes, that is translation. Then we will have a brief idea about eukaryotes. Eukaryotic translation is a bit more complicated than prokaryotes, and as it is not part mentioned in your grade, so we can skip eukaryotes. We will only roughly see the outline, and then we will compare the protein synthesis of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So as I said, we will first move towards the protein synthesis of prokaryotes. So in steps in translation of prokaryotes, there are 3 stages. These are initiation, elongation, and termination. If you refer into internet, in very rarely, but in some cases, they added up one extra step into the translation, that is called activation. Activation is actually occurring before initiation, but mostly it is not included as steps in translation, although activation of tRNA is very much essential for translation, but it is considered as a separate step in most of the cases. So obviously initiation, elongation, termination, activation, 4 of these parts we are going to study one by one. So first we will talk about activation. Here correct amino acid is to be added to the transfer RNA. I explained to you, consider this is the cloverleaf model of transfer RNA. If in anticodon part, UAC is there, then the amino acid that will be added here is methionine. So codon of methionine is AUG. It will be present in the messenger RNA. AUG will be present in the messenger RNA. The anticodon loop, this is called anticodon loop. The anticodon loop of transfer RNA will have complementary sequence of these codon. So this is called codon and this is called anticodon. So depending on anticodon, the acids will be added. For example, the anticodon loop of if it is having complementary sequence for the genetic code of cysteine, then here the amino acid cysteine will be added. So whatever code that is present over here will decide which amino acid is to bind. Is this part clear to everyone?
Yes.
So Nakshatra confirmed. I think Vish confirmed. Kashish, Kaushak, Rishang, what about you? Great.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how this actually the process is done? Is there anyone to guide Miss T transfer RNA that what is to be added? Transfer RNAs roam separately and they can be reused. मतलब ट्रांसफर आरएनए क्या करते हैं? ट्रक्स जैसे काम करते हैं, ठीक है? ट्रक के पास एक पास रहता है, वो पास जब वो फैक्ट्री में दिखाता है, पास देख के उसके हिसाब से सामान लोड किया जाता है. This anticodon loop is like the pass. This will, once this will be shown to the enzyme which is catalyzing this charging or activation, the enzyme will add amino acids accordingly. So if anticodon loop is as per cytosine, cytosine will be added. Sorry, cysteine will be added. So let us talk about it in detail. That individual tRNA, there is an enzyme which is called amino acid tRNA synthetase, which is specific for amino acid. Under supervision of this enzyme that is called amino acid tRNA synthetase, so tRNA plus amino acid gives rise to amino acyl tRNA. So that means the activated tRNA or charged tRNA or loaded tRNA. And the enzyme which catalyzes this reaction is known as amino acyl tRNA synthetase. Name you can easily remember. Synthetase means it is responsible for synthesis of amino acid tRNA. Okay, so we will have a look into how it will look after charging. So you can see that this is the codon GCC. Anticodon will be CGG. And amino acid, a specific amino acid will be bound with the 3' end. So now we will go directly to the translation. This activation is like prerequisite of translation. So in initiation, what happens is prokaryotes require the large subunit of ribosome, small subunit of ribosome, messenger RNA, the transfer RNA, and 3 initiation factors, that is IF1, IF2, and IF3. The energy required for this process is supplied by GTP. Can anyone tell me the full form of GTP?
Guanosine triphosphate.
Very good. So it is guanosine triphosphate. So it's not ATP, remember that. Okay, so it will start in opposite direction. How to remember? The binding will go in this order. So first IF3 will bind to 30S subunit. Okay, so why? So first step is 30S plus IF3. Now this IF3 is binding with 30S subunit because it is not expected that the large subunit is bound with the small subunit. Generally, before protein synthesis, that is translation, the subunits are separated from each other. हम जैसे grade 11 में ribosome की structure देखे, both of them together, they do not exist like that. Okay, so IF3 is preventing the binding of big subunit to the small one. Okay. IF2's role is to be in formation of a complex with the GTP, that is guanosine triphosphate. And IF1 is also binding with the small subunit. IF1 will help in the identification of charged initiator tRNA. That means initiator tRNA means the first transfer RNA which will bind with the ribosome. So the 30S subunit will be attached with messenger RNA molecule. So this will bind where? Now you may have a question, how it is possible, ma'am, messenger RNA is a nucleic acid and ribosome is a something else. So we observed initially कि हमेशा complementarity के वजह से एक सिंगल स्टैंडर्ड न्यूक्लिक एसिड दूसरे सिंगल स्टैंडर्ड न्यूक्लिक एसिड से बाइंड होता है। तो ऐसा क्या हो जाता है कि मैसेंजर आरएनए राइबोसोम से बाइंड होता है? कैन एनीवन गेस कि मैसेंजर आरएनए कैसे बाइंड होता होगा? क्लास anyone wish to try? Have you got my question? Should I repeat the question once again?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess all of you can hear me clearly, that too. So 30S subunit is attached to messenger RNA because messenger RNA definitely is nucleic acid. The attachment site of messenger RNA with the ribosome is complementary to the ribosomal RNAs present in the RNA. That is why messenger RNA will be easily binding with the ribosomes. Okay. Now, once all these subunits are there, initiator transfer RNA can bind to the complex. So what is the order? First IF3 will bind with the 30S. The order is IF3. What is full form of IF3? Can anyone tell me? If you don't know, at least say I don't know. Anyone knows the full form of IF3?
No, ma'am.
It is initiation
Initiation factor.
factor 3. So since beginning I am talking IF3, IF3. If you don't know, at least ask me that, ma'am, what is it? Anyways, IF3, that is initiation factor 3, bind with 30S, then there will be binding of IF2, which will coordinate with the GTP. So it will be IF3, IF2 and 30S subunit. And then there will be finally binding of IF1, which will be helpful for bringing transfer RNA. But other parts are already there, that is IF2, GTP, IF3, 30S, and the messenger RNA. So at the end of the procedure for formation of 30S initiation complex, these are the things which are supposed to be there. IF1 transfer RNA, IF2 GTP, IF3 30S subunit, as well as messenger RNA. So once 30S subunit is produced, This is how it is produced. I wish to share this picture with you. Small subunit. This is the big subunit. It is still not attached. Small subunit will bind with messenger RNA. This is the initiator transfer RNA. In messenger RNA, AUG is there. In anticodon, USC is there, and methionine is there. It will come and bind here. So once the 30S initiation complex is formed, the 50S subunit can now bind. Once 58 is bind, it will displace IF1 and IF2. And as soon as IF1 and IF2 is removed, GTP will break down to give the energy. Because the binding of 50S with the 30S initiation complex is a what I can say, it's a energy consuming process. So अब ये 30S initiation complex नहीं रहा. Now we will call it as a 70S initiation complex. So now these assembled ribosomes have two tRNA binding sites. One is called A site, another is called P site. A stands for amino acid site and P stands for peptidyl sites. And there is another site which is called E. E means exist site for empty tRNA. So let me draw and make you understand. Later on images are also there. But thought I can say, consider this is your messenger RNA. So the first ribosome tRNA will bind to this part of ribosome. This is called A site. This is called P site, and then this is called, this site will call exit site. So what will happen? The first, sorry, it will be reversed if it is. If it is coming from this direction, the first transfer RNA will bind here. So this is my first transfer RNA. After binding here, adding the first amino acid here, this will move towards the P site. So when this first transfer RNA will move to the A site, se jabi it will go to the P site, the first transfer RNA. The second transfer RNA will be coming over here. Okay, so it is having one amino acid. This one will have another amino acid. There is formation of a peptide bond over here. Now, if you look into the third image, now this transfer RNA number 1 will come to the E site, that is exit site. Transfer RNA 2 will come into the peptidyl site, and transfer RNA 3, which is the new transfer RNA, will come to the E site. So here one amino acid, peptide bond with it, another amino acid, peptide bond with it, another amino acid. This is the way through the small gap between two ribosomal subunit, the RNA, messenger RNA will pass. Transfer RNA will come one by one. First, they will bind with A site. Then, once they added the amino acid and it is bound with the peptide bond with the previous amino acid, it will move to P site, and then once peptide bond formation is done, it will move to E site. From there, it will leave. अब ये अपना जो transfer RNA 1 है, that will leave from E site. Is this part clear? The reasons of sites, what is A, what is P, what is E, and why they are called like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So, after the initiation, there is elongation. So, if you look into elongation, initiation means addition of the first amino acid. When the second amino acid is coming into the position and there is formation of a bond, that is called elongation. And then elongation will continue till the last amino acid added. So here will be EFTU and EFS, EFG, GTP, charged tRNA and 70S initiation complex. So EF means elongation factor. So elongation factor TU, elongation factor TS, elongation factor G. These are the three elongation factors. The way there was initiation factor 3, 2, 1, I am always calling them in the order of their binding. Here it is TU, TS and G. GTP will be obviously required because you can understand the messenger RNA is constantly moving. So apart from that, new charged tRNA and 70S initiation complex is required. So amino acid tRNA delivery. So what happens is EFTU is required to deliver correct amino acid tRNA to A site. That means matching with the codon and anticodon, EFTU will monitor the correct amino acid मतलब tRNA आ रहा है वहाँ पे as per the codon and anticodon pairing, and binding require energy which is provided by GTPase. EFTU जो है that is responsible for this consumption of GTP into GDP. Okay, now once the GTP is utilized, it cannot be utilized once again. Then this GDP needs to be again converted to GTP. So the conversion of EFTU GDP to GTP is done by EFTS. So what is the role of EFTS? EFTS will do what? EFTS will convert this GDP into GTP. So that is again used by the EFTU. So EFTU GDP converted to EFTU GTP under supervision of EFTS, and now this EFTU will go for binding of second amino acid transferase. That is amino acid tRNA. So once the amino acid is added, yes, Dish?
मैम TU और TS मतलब क्या?
TU or TS matlab, this is the name given by people, beta. They don't have any other meaning as such. So next step is peptide bond formation. That is, once the amino acid is added into A site, from A it will move to P site. The moment it is getting into P site, there will be formation of a peptide bond with that second amino acid with the first. Same way, third with the second, fourth with the third. This is the way amino acids chain will be produced by peptide bond formation. Okay. Enzyme peptidyl transferase activity, like that is possessed by 50S subunit, is catalyzing the peptide bond formation between two amino acids. Let's have a look into the image. It will be easy for you to understand. This is how the structure looks. You can see this is already in the P site. The first amino acid is already in the P site. Let me number the amino acids. It will be easy for you to understand. So this is the first amino acid. second amino acid is going to bind here. So this is the P site, this is the A site, and once the second amino acid is moving from A site to P site, this is the second amino acid. First amino acid will go to E site, which is located somewhere here, and it will get out of the ribosome. So this movement of like messenger RNA, or rather to say elongation of the amino acid chain, or movement of the transfer RNA from A to P to E, is called translocation. So here EFG, that is also called translocase, and GTP bind to the ribosome. It's a very energy consuming step. यहाँ पे क्या होता है, P side से it's like the amino acid is moved from A site to P site under supervision of this EFG, that is elongation factor G. Once it is moving to the P site, both EFG and GDP is released. So this is how it looks. One by one they will come, and this process will continue up to the time termination codon is appearing, that is UAA. So you, in this picture, you can very easily look into the procedure. Kindly take a minute and look into it. It will be very easy for you to understand. So first amino acid, second amino acid, third amino acid, this is the way it goes on. So should we move ahead, beta? Shyama, should
Yes,
we
ma'am.
move ahead? Shyama, if you can speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Good to hear you after a long time. So now we will come to the last step of this whole translation process, that is termination. Actually, it is not the last step of protein synthesis, it is the last step of translation. So what happens is, the moment UAA, UGA and UAG, sorry, it is a printing mistake over here, both are written as UGA and UGA. It is UGA and UAG. As soon as these three codons are appearing, these codons do not code for any amino acid. So what will happen, beta? Consider polypeptide chain is extended like this. अब क्या हो रहा है? Obviously, the amino acid transferase tRNA, that is the one which is carrying the last amino acid, will move to A to P site and then P to E site. But in spite of trial, there is no next amino acid, so peptide chain formation will stop. The last amino acid, consider the 151 number amino acid, will reach from A site to P site. Now the 152 number amino acid is supposed to be added here. Then only ये जो लंबी सी पॉलीपेप्टाइड चेन है, इसके साथ लास्ट अमीनो एसिड की बाइंडिंग होगी. अगर यहाँ कोई अमीनो एसिड आता ही नहीं है and no transfer RNA is binding to the A site, तो क्या होगा? क्योंकि कोई अमीनो एसिड है ही नहीं, चेन इतने तक ही सिंथेसिस होगा ना, Yes or no?
Yes,
So this
ma'am.
is how the process of protein synthesis will stop. It will stop like this. And once the stop codon is like there, the everything that is there are releasing factors like called RF1, RF2, RF3. Releasing factors, they actually help in the release of the peptidyl tRNA bond, so that polypeptide now can come out of the ribosomal subunits, and the 70S again will be divided into 30S and 50S, and they will go separate. So RF1 bind to A site and release the polypeptide. RF2 is releasing RF1 from the A site, and the function of RF3 is still not known. So इसमें याद रखना, I am repeating once again the factor. Initiation factor 3 to 1 से bind होता है और releasing factor 1 to 3 से bind होता है, और वहां elongation factor 3 होते हैं, TU, TS और elongation factor G. So there is another factor which is there, which is called ribosomal releasing factor RRA, which is responsible for dissociation of 70S complex. That means separating small and big subunit is part. So this is how termination will look like. Polypeptide chain will go in its own way. Last transfer RNA will go again for loading, and the subunits of ribosome will move away from each other. So, should we first see the video, then go for eukaryotes? In eukaryotes, not much is there. Class?
मैम
Yes,
वो RF1 और RF2 वाला था, मैम उसको डायग्राम के साथ समझा सकते हो?
releasing factor 1 and releasing factor 2.
Yes, मैम.
Nothing much, Yesha. क्या होता है बेटा? Releasing factor 1 जो होता है, that is responsible for releasing the polypeptide chain from the 70S complex. मतलब जो polypeptide chain प्रोटीन राइबोसोम के अंदर है, okay, it has to be separated from the last transfer RNA और उसको separate identity बन के राइबोसोम के बाहर जाना है. That is done by termination factor 1. Okay. Termination factor 2 is helping in this for termination factor 1. तो एक बार पॉलीपेप्टाइड चेन निकल गया, अब टर्मिनेशन फैक्टर 1 को तो वहां से हटाना पड़ेगा ना. That work is done by termination factor 2. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? Dishait or for raising the hand?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I mean termination factor only stop codons will act.
Yes, termination is like there only by stop codons. Otherwise, they will never stop.
Okay, ma'am.
So I think we can go for the video of translation, or you wish to first let me complete the this one, the eukaryotic translation, and then we should look into the video. Class, should I complete?
मैम पहले वीडियो देख ले, वरना आप प्रोकैरियोट और यूकैरियोट मिक्स हो जाएगा.
Okay, no problem. Actually, it's very difficult to find like only translation videos. In most of the cases, they added up the translation and transcription together in protein synthesis. Okay, so you need to look into first transcription and then translation. Okay. But anyways, we can move ahead. Give me 1 minute to share the video. I guess the screen is visible, beta.
Yes, ma'am.
Translation in prokaryotes is divided into 3 steps: initiation, elongation,
Sound
and
is clear, or you
termination.
want me to
The initiation of
increase the
translation
volume?
Ma'am, it's clear.
So let's have a look.
Hello everyone, quick biochemistry basics here. So let's talk about translation in prokaryotes. Translation in prokaryotes is divided into 3 steps: initiation, elongation, and termination. The initiation of translation is carried out by 3 initiation factors: IF1, IF2, and IF3. In the first step of initiation, the initiation factor IF3 binds to the 30th subunit of the ribosome. The binding of IF3 dissociates the 70S ribosome into 30S and 50S subunit. Next, IF1 GTP binds to the A site of the 30S subunit. Binding of IF1 and IF3 to the 30S subunit blocks the A site and the E site of the 30S ribosome. Next, initiation factor IF2 along with charge N-formyl methionine tRNA binds to the P site. The structure so formed is known as 30S initiation complex. The binding of IF2 along with N-formyl methionine charged tRNA to the P site causes IF3 to release from the E site. Next, as IF3 is released, 50S subunit along with the mRNA binds to the 30S subunit. Next, GTP associated with IF1 is hydrolyzed to GDP by IF2. As GTP is hydrolyzed, IF1 GDP now releases the A site. Finally, IF2 is also released from the ribosome. This complex so formed is known as 70S initiation complex. Elongation of translation. The elongation of translation is carried out by elongation factors like EFTU, EFTS, and EFG. GTP-bound elongation factor EFTU brings the charged amino acid at the A site of the ribosome. Once the charged amino acid binds, the GTP is hydrolyzed to GDP. Finally, EFTU-GDP is released from the ribosome. The elongation factor EFTS helps in the recycling of GDP by GTP. In the next step, there is a peptide bond formation between the two amino acids. Next, elongation factor EFG helps in the translocation. The GTP-bound EFG binds to the ribosome and the GTP is hydrolyzed to GDP. As a result of this conformational change, the tRNA carrying two amino acids at the A site shifts to the P site of the ribosome. The elongation of translation continues till the stop codons are reached. Once the stop codons reaches the A site, the translational machinery now proceeds for termination. The factors involved in termination are RF1, RF3, and RRF. When stop codons reaches the A site, the termination factor RF1 occupies the A site. The 3 amino acid glycine-glutamine present in RF1 helps in the release of polypeptide chain from the ribosome. This release is triggered when GDP-bound RF3 gets associated with RF1. In the next step, GDP is replaced by GTP, which finally releases RF3. Once the polypeptide chain and RF3 gets disassociated, RRF binds at the A site. In presence of elongation factor EFG, the RRF releases the two uncharged tRNA from E site and the P site. And when finally IF3 binds to the 30th subunit, the translational machinery gets disassociated.
So I guess now anyone doesn't have any doubt in this regard. Class?
Okay, class. Who would like?
Anyone any doubt regarding?
मैम आपने उसमें कहा था कि वो RF2 होता है और इसमें RF3 था.
That is actually is not very clear, beta. It's still like under process of discovery. They didn't mention RF2 over here, no?
Okay, ma'am.
So that is how actually the translation process continues. And once it is the required number of, like what I can say, amino acids are added, by the presence of stop codon, it will stop the protein synthesis process. Up to this, anyone any doubt? I heard from Isha her doubt. I was expecting others also to have the same one. Anyways, we will move ahead. Now we will have a look into the difference between the prokaryotes and eukaryotic translation. So before we go for that, we will have a look into the eukaryotic translation procedure. It is not very much different than the prokaryotic procedure. It is also having initiation, elongation, and termination. But its initiation is majorly different from the prokaryotic initiation. The major difference of prokaryotic and eukaryotic translation lies in its initiation. There is a reason because in case of eukaryotes, the transcription and translation are two processes occurring at two different places, and they are discontinuous. Once done, then messenger RNA will leave that place, it will travel, come back to ribosome. Second thing is, in prokaryotes, the messenger RNA is polysystonic. So at a time, many ribosomes are bound with it, and simultaneous production is taking place. It is not in same case in case of eukaryotes. That's why there is a difference. Now let us see what are the difference. Major difference is there in the initiation that I wish to mention here. There the initiation complex were very like simple one. These were simply 30S and 70S. Here it is not. There are pre-initiation complex of 43S, then initiation complex of 48S, and then where there will be formation of a 80S initiation complex. So eukaryotic number of eukaryotic initiation factors are also more, and they under their supervision the whole process occurs. Termination and elongation is almost same. There are a few factors here and there, that is the difference in this case. So this is how it takes place. You can see that eukaryotic initiation factor 3, initiation factor 5, 2, then 4, then there is a cap there in the messenger RNA which needs to be tackled. There is a poly A tail in the messenger RNA which needs to be tackled, which makes obviously the initiation process more complicated. As it is not part of syllabus, so I am not discussing about it in detail. Elongation is almost same. In this case also A, P and E, 3 sites will be there, and binding and translocation will be same, and termination is also same. Whenever the stop codon is coming, the protein synthesis will stop. So the way we had post transcriptional modification, same way we have post translational modification. Okay, so what are these? अब क्या modification की जरूरत है? अब तो protein बन गई है. We need to understand that the formation of protein is not enough. Protein exists in a 3-dimensional structure, and the thing that is produced is a 2D structure in which there is only presence of amino acid chain. Have you ever wondered कि ribosome में जब proteins बन जाते हैं, how they will know that where to, what to do, and how they get their 3-dimensional structures? You must have studied about enzymes in grade 11. You know that how lock-empty hypothesis and 3-dimensional structure is important for functionability of a protein. So here these are the modifications that is occurring as a post-translational modification. So there are formation of disulfide bond, which helps in the conversion of primary structure to secondary, secondary to quaternary, and finally quaternary to tertiary, tertiary to quaternary structure. Proper folding of protein is required. Addition and processing of carbohydrates. We know that there are glycoproteins and phosphoproteins are there. So these parts, extra parts of protein are added. There are proteolytic cleavage. That means some parts to be cleaved to get a specific configuration. And in case of quaternary structure like hemoglobin, 4 polypeptide chains are there in a hemoglobin. So 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. So they are not separate. In a functional hemoglobin, 4 of them should be together. So this assembly is also done as a post-translational modification. In this image, you can easily see the modifications of protein, that is phosphorylation, addition of a phosphate, glycosylation, that is addition of a sugar, ubiquitination, addition of ubiquitin, समोलाइलेशन, that is small protein, sumo जिसे हम बोलते हैं, small ubiquitin like modifier, that is added. This sumolylation is very important for guiding protein for the specific part. Formation of disulfide bond, acyl group addition, lipidation, that means addition of lipid part, methyl group addition, and OH group addition. So these are the different things that is added into the protein for targeting them to the specific position. So I wish to share with you one video of this modification of protein. Kindly have a look into it and let me know if like further you have a doubt. It is not to be discussed in a detail, so I am not at all moving towards the detailed part of it.
Researchers have discovered that the human proteome is vastly more complex than the human genome. Post-translational modification of proteins increases this functional diversity of the proteome, which is the entire set of proteins expressed by a genome at a certain time. The fact that there are way more proteins than there are genes demonstrates that single genes can encode for multiple different proteins. And the increased complexity of the proteome as compared to the genome is facilitated by many different mechanisms, including post-translational modifications, which help to regulate localization, activity, and interactions with other cellular molecules. These modifications can occur at any time during the life cycle of a protein. Many proteins are modified right after translation is completed, and these modifications help to mediate folding into proper conformation, increase the stability of the nascent protein, or help to localize this protein to distinct cellular compartments, like a shipping label. Other modifications occur after folding is completed and a protein has been localized to its proper cellular locale. These modifications serve to alter the biological activity of the protein, either by activating or inactivating catalytic activity, for example. Some other modifications serve as markers that target a protein for degradation. And besides chemical modifications, proteins can be modified via cleavage or proteolysis. The key thing to remember is that the proteome is dynamic and responsive to all sorts of changes in stimuli, and post-translational modifications are a common mechanism for regulating these cellular activities. Now, there are many types of post-translational modifications, so I'll go over only the most common ones here. And let's start with methylation. Methylation involves the transfer of one carbon methyl groups to amino acid side chains by methyltransferases using S-adenosyl methionine, or SAM, as the primary methyl group donor. This can neutralize a negative amino acid charge when bound to carboxylic acids and leads to increased hydrophobicity of the protein. A well-known use for methylation is epigenetic regulation of transcription. Histone methylation and demethylation can alter the availability of DNA for transcription. Another type of protein modification is acetylation, specifically to nitrogen atoms on a protein, so N-acetylation, which occurs as the nascent protein is being translated. The N-terminal methionine on the growing polypeptide chain is cleaved by methionine aminopeptidase and then replaced by an acetyl group donated by acetyl-CoA via an enzyme called N-acetyltransferase. Up to 90% of eukaryotic proteins are acetylated this way, though the biochemical significance of this modification remains to be known. Acetylation also occurs on the lysine residues of histones via the action of histone acetyltransferases, and this is also used to alter transcription in a similar manner to that of methylation. The acetylation of histones helps to promote transcription by reducing the chromosomal condensation around these proteins. The next post-translational modification that can occur to proteins is called glycosylation, and it is one of the most significant types of post-translational modifications because it has implications on protein folding and conformation, distribution, stability, and also activity. Glycosylation involves the addition of a diverse array of sugar moieties and ranges from simple monosaccharide modifications of transcription factors to highly complex branched polysaccharide modifications of cell surface receptors. These carbohydrates can be added to the nitrogen atom in the side chain of asparagine residues, those are N-linked, or to the oxygen atom in the side chains of serine or threonine residues. These are O-linked. These types of glycosylation changes form major structural components of cell surface and secreted proteins. The next modification, lipidation, is a post-translational modification employed to target proteins to particular membrane-bound organelles, such as the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, or mitochondria. It is also used to target proteins to endosomes, lysosomes, and the plasma membrane. Two types of lipidation modifications are GPI anchors and S-palmitoylation. C-terminal glycosyl phosphatidylinositol, or GPI anchors, help to tether proteins bound to the plasma membrane of the cell surface. These hydrophobic moieties are prepared in the endoplasmic reticulum, where they are added to nascent proteins and used to localize cell surface proteins to cholesterol or sphingolipid-rich areas in the plasma membrane. S-palmitoylation involves the addition of 16 carbon-long palmitoyl groups to thiolate side chains of cysteine residues. This modification adds a long hydrophobic chain that can be used in a similar manner as a GPI anchor. It helps to anchor proteins in the hydrophobic cell membrane. Next is ubiquitination, which is a protein modification used to target proteins for degradation. Ubiquitin is a polypeptide consisting of 76 amino acids that is attached to lysine residues of target proteins via the C-terminal glycine of ubiquitin. Polyubiquitinated proteins are recognized by the 26S proteasome, which is an enzyme that catalyzes the degradation of the protein and the recycling of the ubiquitin. Next up is one of the most common post-translational modifications that you'll come across, and that's phosphorylation, which is a reversible modification that occurs principally on serine, threonine, or tyrosine residues and is used to regulate proteins that play a role in a vast array of cellular processes, including signal transduction pathways, the cell cycle, cell growth, and apoptosis. Protein kinases are the enzymes that help facilitate the phosphate group transfer, and phosphorylases help to remove them. And lastly, enzymes called proteases may remove amino acids from the amino end of the protein or cut the peptide chain in the middle, a process known as proteolysis. One example of this is the peptide hormone insulin, which is cut twice after disulfide bonds are formed, and a propeptide is removed from the middle of the chain. The resulting protein consists of two polypeptide chains connected by disulfide bonds. Proteases also play roles in cell signaling, antigen processing, and apoptosis.
So this was a bit complicated for you people to understand, but just want to give you an idea about the process of post translational modification, where different changes are occurring in case of the produced proteins, which is actually very much important from the point of view of guiding the proteins into the proper function as well as to the proper place. Okay. Any doubts, anyone?
No, ma'am.
No,
So with this, we will end our lecture today. Tomorrow, we will first look into the comparative analysis of prokaryotic and eukaryotic protein synthesis once again. We will have a small revision video of protein synthesis, and then we will go for the next part of this chapter, that is gene expression. अब protein तो synthesis हो गई है, but I told you in our body all genes are not switched on at all position. वरना सोचो, एक simple example मैं देती हूँ. Do you agree with me that if I take a cell from my skin, I take a cell from my muscle, and I take a cell from my digestive system, all will have same DNA or different DNA? Class, if I take 3 cells from 3 different parts of my body, all will have same DNA or different DNA? What do you think? Riyanshi? Nishka? No problem, you can say I don't know. There is nothing wrong to say I don't know. They will have same DNA sequence or different DNA sequence. Yes, Esha?
same.
So if they have same DNA sequence, then what is controlling their expression? That's what my next question. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि सभी cells के DNA same है, but they have different structure, they have different function? That is what is gene expression. Obviously, in eukaryotes, it is 1000 times more complicated. So we are not at all peek into the gene expression of eukaryotes. The way we tried for transcription and translation, in gene expression, we will not even peep towards that side. We will take example of an operand which was proposed by Jacob and Monod, and we will try to get an explanation for gene expression in prokaryotes. Okay, so these are the things we are